This time on the show, we're wrapping up Hak5 Season 8 with the last of our conversations from security experts at Shmoocon 2011. Search and seizures, cross-site scripting, and owning network printers. All that and more this time on Hak5.
Yeah, hook me up, I'm ready.
This episode of Hak5 is brought to you by Netflix. Go to www.netflix.com/Hak5 to get your free trial membership. Domain.com. Got a great idea? It all starts with a great domain. Domain.com. And GoToAssist Express. Support smarter with GoToAssist Express.
So the general rule in the United States is that the government has to get a warrant before searching something that you have a reasonable expectation of privacy in. And this is a right that's guaranteed by the Constitution, the Fourth Amendment specifically. So what that means is that, for example, if the police want to search your house, they have to tell a judge why and show they have probable cause to search your house and then get a warrant. The thing that's tough, though, is that at the border, the rules are a little bit different.
How so?
Well, while the Fourth Amendment does apply at the border, searches there are generally considered reasonable simply because they occur there, which means that...
like they've searched my car before, but they never actually pulled out my laptop.
Well, yeah, the customs agents or the border agents generally don't have to have a warrant or suspicion of anything really to search stuff that you bring over the border, unless it's like a really extraordinary search, like a search of your body or something, right?
Really?
Like the interior of your body, like if they think you're like smuggling drugs or something,
search.
right? Yeah, exactly. That's they need a little bit of suspicion for that. But unfortunately, the courts have said that when it comes to computers, border agents don't need any suspicion of wrongdoing at all.
What?
To search your computer. So
that's scary.
I think it is scary, and I think a lot of people don't know that. And a lot of people, of course, travel with their computers.
Oh yeah, especially for work and such.
Oh,
overseas.
Absolutely. Lots of people travel with work laptops and laptops that have a lot of
tons of really secure information.
Right, like really confidential information, and they can have lots of really private information on their computers too. Years of archived email conversations and even like tax records. There can be a great deal of information there that the government.
I don't want them to see that.
Right, exactly. So that's something that I talked about in my talk because I think that that's something a lot of people don't know about, and I talked a little bit also about some of the things that people can do to protect their data at the border.
Oh, well, what can I do?
Well, so I encourage everybody to visit our website. We have like a long guide that we've put up there for people to mull over and think about it and decide whether it works for them. But to just kind of summarize it, some of the things that you can do are, for example, don't take data over the border that you don't need to take. So
just like copy it over to a hard drive or something, your regular PC that you have at home.
Right. One thing you might think about is having a laptop that's really just for travel, that you don't keep much on. And when you need to travel, you put the data on that computer that is only the data that you need for that trip, and then take it over the border, and then perhaps consider securely wiping your computer before you come back.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that agents might not see the things that you wouldn't want them to see because there's nothing there to see.
And even if they did check it, I've heard that people would get their computers taken for like hours and days on end.
Right.
So it wouldn't take them as long.
Well, exactly. And if you have your data elsewhere, on your computer at home or a backup stored somewhere else, it's not such a big deal if the agent sees your computer at the border and then don't give it back for a while. So that's something to think about as well. And of course, encryption is really important too.
Oh yeah, like TrueCrypt and stuff.
Yeah, encrypting your data can go a long way toward helping to secure your data at the border.
Now, if I do put a password on my computer, are they allowed to ask me or to make me give them that password or open up my computer?
So they can ask you they can ask you for your password or for your passphrase, your encryption passphrase. You don't have to give it to them.
Really?
Nope, you don't have to give it to them.
Will you get in trouble?
Well, this is something that's difficult, right? Everybody always wonders, like, well, gosh, if I'm not cooperative, if I don't give them what they ask for, what's going to happen?
Are they going to
like
let me arrest me?
Right? Are they going to like let me into the country? Or are they not?
Yeah.
And so I think that this is something that's sort of a personal trade-off for every traveler, right? I mean, if you are worried about being detained for some hours and being questioned, or if you're worried about getting your laptop seized, I think this is a call everybody has to make for themselves, whether they want to provide the passphrase, whether they, are comfortable doing it. But, the important thing to know is that you don't have to.
Okay.
If the government really, really wants it, they can ask a judge to, to force you to disclose the password.
To make you do it.
But it's possible that, an order like that would probably be unconstitutional.
Mm-hmm.
You have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, which means that the government can't force you to give testimonial evidence, or evidence that would disclose your thoughts, the contents of your brain, in a way that would make it more likely or possible for them to prosecute you for something. So if you have any concerns along those lines, you can raise your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, and it's likely, based on what the courts have done so far, it's likely that the court would find, we can't compel you to disclose this password because it would show that you have, control over the contents of the computer. So, that's always something to keep in mind.
Now, our constitutional rights don't exactly say like they can look into our laptops or any of our data, because it was made like 400 years ago.
Right, exactly.
What do they call a laptop and all of the data that's on the laptop? Is it physical to them?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, because the Constitution was written a long time ago.
Yeah.
The people who wrote it were never contemplating things like computers and data.
Clue. Yeah.
And the courts have developed the rules over the years, but they've always done it in the context of the physical world.
Yeah.
Like when
like
can
your
the police
house,
search
your
your
car.
house or your car, or right. And so, what courts tend to do is, when they're faced with a new situation and, they've never really thought about it before, they'll look at what they've done in the past and say, okay, so this was a similar situation, so the rules there should probably apply in this situation too. And so, kind of by using those kinds of analogies, the courts have kind of come to different conclusions about how to apply the Constitution to things like computers
From like
and
state
data.
to state, or?
Well, frankly, just court to court.
Wow.
I mean, there can be differences in federal courts in the way that they come down on things. But some courts have said, okay, a laptop is like a box, it's like a container, right? And the stuff inside it is the stuff that you would find in a container.
So it's kind of like a filing cabinet or a briefcase or something like that.
Well, yeah, like a briefcase, right?
Okay.
So that's what some courts have said. And as a general matter, if you have a reasonable expectation of privacy in a container, then they need a warrant to look in the container. So the courts have said, okay, well, you need a warrant to look in the computer. But then other courts have said, well, the different disks in a laptop or a computer are different containers. And other ones have said, different files on a computer are different containers.
Yeah, do they actually have the right to go through all of my files and everything just to find one certain thing that they're looking for?
Well, it's an interesting question. It depends on the circumstances, right?
Wow.
As a general matter, the government has to have a warrant to search something. There can be all sorts of exceptions to the warrant requirement, and if you're in a situation where one of those exceptions applies, then you could be in a situation where the government has the right to look at everything on your phone or your laptop without a warrant at all. So these are things that are I think evolving all the time.
Yeah.
The courts are constantly struggling to try to figure out the best way to apply the law to things like laptops and phones.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a new world, right? And they're still figuring out the rules.
What about things like cloud data and email, like on my Gmail account? Can they look through that kind of stuff?
So the courts have been really, really slow to try to figure out the way that the Fourth Amendment applies to data held, your data held by third parties. Aside from the Fourth Amendment issues, there's this whole big, complicated series of laws that requires the government to have certain, to meet certain standards, but before they can get certain types of your data.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if they want to, intercept your email, if they want to, actually get your email as it's in transit from point A to point B, they're supposed to get a warrant.
I hope so.
But if they want to get stored email, like let's say you have a Gmail account and they want to get email of yours that's more than 6 months old,
all my archive stuff.
Yeah, your archive stuff. Then they may not have to actually meet that standard. They may have a lower standard. And
really?
There's a whole complicated scheme, and it depends on whether the data they're interested in is content, like the real content of an email, for example, or IM, or whether it's non-content, like information that doesn't really reveal so much about you, right? Like for example, the data, the routing data that gets information, gets an email from point A to point B. That there's a lesser standard for that kind of thing. But and then there are laws in every state that cover this ground too. So it's all very complicated. But aside from that statutory framework, there was a court, a fairly high level, an appeals court, that just last month found that the Fourth Amendment protects your email that is stored by commercial ISPs, and that's a really big deal. This is something, of course, that the Electronic Frontier Foundation has been hoping for a long time, and we were involved in that case, and we were very, very happy with the outcome, and we think that's the right result.
Yeah, I do too.
But it calls into question some of the laws that are on the books now, like the one that I mentioned that says that the government can get email that's older, stored email that's older than 6 months old with less than a warrant. Because, if the Fourth Amendment protects it, then, they have to get a warrant before they can get email from, the provider for the most part, so.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure that you've brought up a ton of questions for our viewers, like a ton of stuff that they probably want to Google now. So, do you have a website where they can go and find out more information?
Absolutely. EFF.org.
EFF.org. Awesome. Thank you so much, Martha.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
If you're an IT or software consultant, you're always looking to compete with the big guys. But the problem is you may be a one-man show. You need a remote support tool, and the best is GoToAssist Express. The faster you can connect to a customer, the faster you can move on to the next challenge. Reduce your travel time and increase revenue by supporting multiple requests. Brought to you by Citrix, you know GoToAssist Express is easy and secure. Try GoToAssist Express free for 30 days. For this special offer, visit gotoassist.com/HAK5. Again, that's gotoassist.com/HAK5 for a free trial.
Trey, it's good to see you again.
Yeah,
I know that you guys do lots of fun stuff over at iHacked. Last time we spoke, it was all about zombies.
Yes.
What are you breaking now?
We're breaking Evite now. We have discovered some issues in just basically their API that we can call into and dump out data and alter data, become different users and make comments as people that didn't say certain things. We can delete users from the invitation.
How did you stumble across this problem in Evite?
Well, I actually received my first Evite back in 2006, and ever since that I was picking on it, just having fun, making comments as people, and I decided to turn it over to Evite. And they said, well, we have this new version coming out, which is their kind of like their 2 point. So this was
back in 2006?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I only disclosed it last September.
All right.
But because I've been, it's kind of fun to just pick. It was harmless. But then when this new version came out, I found so many other bugs with them that I turned all that data over, and I gave them. Last September we had a while. That's when I gave full disclosure to them, and I told them that I was going to speak at Shmoocon about the
okay. So they must have fixed everything before Shmoocon, because as soon as you give your talk, everybody's going to know how to hack Evite, and then it'll be mayhem, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. But yeah, you know how the security and business don't go hand in hand.
So they hired a team to come in and fix the stuff, right?
Yeah, sure. You would think that, but no, that did not happen.
Ooh. That's no good.
Yeah.
Well, what is the extent of the problem, and how did you originally even stumble across it? Were you just viewing source, or were you using tools like Jicto or Nicto or anything like that?
Basically, I was just using Chrome, because Chrome has the inspect element function inside the tool.
Yeah, it's kind of like Firebug for Firefox.
Exactly. So I'm able to look at the raw code as it's being dumped out, and I was seeing what is like a GID, which means it's a guest ID. That's what makes up their security. So I was able to grab all those GIDs and plug them back into the browser.
Oh, just like in the URL?
Right. And so then what would happen is I would actually become that user, and I could make a comment that they didn't say.
Did you not need a password?
No, there isn't a password. The GID is basically the password for.
So that's the fundamental flaw in the entire structure of the website is that, and I can understand on their aspects, it's like, oh, we want it to be the barrier to, lower the barrier of entry so you can invite your guests and they can just click the link and add comments and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And not have to log in.
Right, they wanted to make it very easy to do that, but in doing that, if let's say the user said, hey, come to my party, and posted their URL out on, like, we'll just say Twitter, then even if their party was private, you're still able to go in the back end and dump out all that data.
How do you see it?
Well, it's written in JSON, so it actually just dumps out in like text. And I just wrote a PHP tool that parsed all that, so I could have all the email addresses and the users, and if they said they're coming or not coming or undecided. And the thing that's really scary is, like, I even found, like, I think it was a Democratic Party for all the sponsors, so people like big names who like made donations. So I was able to see their personal information, if they were coming, or if they posted a message to the host like, oh, we'll be out of town, just stuff like that, which just became really scary.
That's privacy violation right there.
Definitely.
I mean, that's, so tell me, it's not like they have like an API, though. You're saying you just built this PHP tool, or do they have an API?
I mean, it's really all it is I mean, it does act like an API, but basically the website, when you go to Evite, it looks for that string, and it parses out what should be shown based on what's in this JSON script. Like if it says private party, then the website knows, okay, don't show this information. But if you actually go to that script, you just get the whole entire gamut of usernames, the GIDs, the events, who's coming, all that sort of stuff.
And how would you go about, like, logging in as well? I mean, obviously the guest doesn't have any sort of security, but the person running it, they're going to have some security, right?
Yeah,
I mean, when you create an event, you have to sign up for the service with a username and password, right?
Correct. They do have a just for the host has the event ID, and that will ask you to log in. But I was able to, I guess the main thing that I wanted to see was if I could become the host and make a comment as them.
Yeah.
And I did determine that when posting to Evite, I could just use the guest ID of false and put in any username. So I could put in the host's name and say, like, we could change the party to say, like, it's going to be a costume party now. And
Love that idea.
Yeah. So,
everybody shows up to your wedding reception and
they're just like,
zombie.
oh, I thought it was a costume party.
But you said everybody show up as a zombie.
Even if I do that to a user, the user is not able to change that comment because it did not formulate correctly. So only those guest IDs can alter those comments. But luckily, the host is kind of like the mothership that can delete any comment.
Okay.
But I did find that I can delete the host from their own invite.
Oh my gosh.
And
they're no longer invited to their own party.
So when they click on the link for their party, one, if they just sign in normally, instead of clicking on the link that comes in their email, it doesn't show up anymore. It's not in their profile. But if they happen if they happen to click on the email, it will say, like, you're not invited. And so you can add and bring back people and just add things like host equals yes and stuff like that.
Well, what's really interesting is you say that you get the email addresses of them. You got the email address of the host. Spoofing email is really easy. You can create comments. You're even showing me how the site's susceptible to cross-site scripting attacks. So as far as like a vector for phishing is concerned, especially like spear phishing, where you're really trying to exploit like human trust. If you're like a guest to a party, most likely you have a relationship with that person and probably wouldn't think twice of like, oh, here's an update to the party, and then you make disguise it and make it almost look like a an Evite link.
Yeah, you bring up another great problem. I mean, it's just like it's going on and on and on, but they have a capability to email all the guests from Evite themselves. So as the host, you can send out an update to everyone.
And you as the hacker can now do that.
Yes, I can, as long as I have any authenticated. It doesn't matter if if the host's cookie, I can use any authentication cookie and send everyone that's invited and even leave the host off, so they had no idea that I sent all their guests a link that says, now I'm selling Viagra, click on this link. You could do click fraud and stuff like that.
Or a client-side attack.
Yeah, just send them fake AV.
And own the Democratic Party.
Yeah, because it even comes from the host. It has the host's email, and it just says, invitation from Evite, an update.
Yeah.
And I can put code in that post as well, so I can have an image in the email. One thing when I was doing the research on here, when I got my invite, I did see that Evite's logo showed up without me clicking display all images. And I was like, how is this done? There's a function called CID, and what they've done is that's actually trailing in the headers. So they just put the image in the headers and they source it out instead of having www.google.com/GIF source that way. They just do CID and then Evite bar. So I was able to mimic that same image, just shrink it down and say, please click this link below, and they think it looks like the Evite logo. It just kind of build that trust even more.
That's really interesting. You're also mentioning something about Facebook. How does that come into play with this?
Well, Facebook has kind of like it would be like a skeleton key. If you have an event ID and a GID, that's what allows you in to view the invitation. But on Facebook, they've given them just FB as the guest ID. That's like how they post out to the social network.
Oh, right, because when you do that, you don't have to add it as an application, or something like that.
You can send it out to
it's not
Twitter.
Like OAuth.
Yeah. So once you do that, though, you're kind of exposing your email list as well as anyone else that's coming, comments, stuff like that. So if you just have the event and your guest ID equals FB, you're able to access the invitation.
Wow, that's scary stuff. And so what's led you to disclose this way, and what kind of concerns have you had as far as a hacker and disclosure and responsibility?
Well, the problem is all those fundamental errors.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the system is just broken.
Yeah, they stack up on top of each other, because I can even ask them about users, because they have profiles on there.
Yeah,
it will tell me.
Out the window.
Yeah, it will tell me if the user is currently signed in. It will tell me your birth date. All your information that you use to sign up is also just blatantly open.
If this was Facebook and not Evite, this would be all over every media outlet.
Exactly.
And I mean, Evite, it's still really important because people have been using this for. I mean, it's not even the greatest invitation type of online software anyway, but it's just the one that people have been using for the last decade anyway.
Yeah, so it's just common name.
Yeah.
It's like a Kleenex,
Yeah, it's kind of your de facto standard in that case. When you contacted them, were they just not they just not want to hear it? Just didn't want to rewrite their entire
Well,
code base?
Actually, when I wrote them, they immediately wrote me back, and they were very interested. But time and money. I don't know. I mean, if it works good, then why not? Why fix it? Something like that. But we'll see what all this turns out, because I really would hope that they would do some type of authenticating, at least a cookie, so to speak, to fix some of this stuff.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks for talking to us.
Yeah, no problem at all. It's good
you guys
seeing
do
you.
Great stuff. Where can people find out more of the stuff that you guys do with iHacked?
We're actually going to be launching a brand new site. It's going to have some really cool stuff. So in the next few months, but the site is www.i-hackedbeingpasttense.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Trent.
Thank you. Good seeing you.
Running your own server doesn't have to cost a fortune. Domain.com virtual private servers start at just $34.95 a month and include all the tools you need to manage any size website. In fact, our very own site Hak5.org is running on one now. Take charge with cPanel, Plesk, or even SSHN with root access. Get a domain for under $10 and reliable hosting for $5. Support Hak5 by supporting Domain.com. As a Hak5 viewer, you can get an additional 15% off your order when you check out with coupon code HAK5. Your next big idea starts at Domain.com.
So Ben, thank you for joining me today. What is it exactly that you do?
Security contractor.
Security contract, okay.
So kind of help manage projects, look at them, see how they're working, try to make sure that they're being done the correct way. Generally kind of a jack of all trades, master of none.
Very
I joke
cool.
about being a janitor because I just kind of go and clean up other people's messes. It's fun.
Okay, understandable, yeah. Now, I know that you did a talk the other day about like printer ownage, basically. How did you figure that out?
Ultimately, I was originally asked to actually try to steal documents from printers, and so we started playing around with that, and that was about the only thing I couldn't do. The particular ones
actually read the print data?
Yeah.
That comes out? Okay.
Certain manufacturers you can. The particular ones we were playing around with were a lot of the big HP printers that you find all over the place. In fact, I counted like 6 or 7
like
of them.
hotels.
There was at least 7 of them behind hotel registration.
Here?
Yes.
Ooh.
And I will bet a lot of money that they are vulnerable.
Yeah, I actually had, I used to work at a bank, nameless bank, and they had the HP, like the network printers. So the printers that you can hack, these are all the network ones?
Yeah.
Not your mom's like inkjet?
Well, some of the multi-function printers, the MFPs,
Okay.
they've got some storage space that we can use. So yeah, those, it's starting to blur the lines between an enterprise device and a home device.
Yeah. The newer ones that could do like scanning and faxing and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So ultimately, what I was trying to do, obviously, was steal documents. I couldn't do that. So I started looking at some of the other features I had. There's some PGL hacks that have been known for years. I mean, I remember messing around with this stuff back when I was in high school.
Now what's PGL?
PGL stands for Printer Job Language.
Okay.
It's a formatting language that you kind of wrap around a print job when you send it to the printer, and it then parses out the command and says, okay, I need to do this, this, and this.
Okay.
There are some interesting commands such as uploading and downloading of files, listing of directories. There's a SNMP backdoor. Well, I've been calling it a backdoor. It's actually a documented feature.
Backdoor.
Yeah. I have no idea why they would do this, but they chose to. So anyways, using all of these commands, I started saying, okay, well, I've got one printer here, and it's only got 20 megs, but I've got 50 of them. So let's aggregate all that storage together into kind of this, and I hate the word cloud, but cloud-based storage device, and basically you end up with a little TFTP terminal style kind of tool, and you say upload, and it compresses the file, encrypts the file, stores the file under a randomly generated file name on 2 devices.
Okay.
And the reason why we do 2 devices is because most of the time you're storing these files in a RAM disk, which means if you reboot the computer or the printer, poof, there goes all your files. That's kind of a double-edged sword, because I can remotely reboot them, which means bye-bye forensic evidence, or somebody can flip it off and I lose all my stuff. So I simply store it in 2 different locations with an attempt to say, okay, fine, I've lost this one, but maybe it's still over here. It's kind of interesting. The space adds up really, really quickly. I ripped through 2 small buildings of the place where I work at, and all of their stuff, I had some 50-odd gigs worth of storage.
Wow.
Now, I got kind of lucky because I got a couple of the MFPs. The MFPs will actually have full hard drives sometimes.
Okay.
So you'll get 30, 40 gigs out of one of those versus maybe 20 or 30 out
I didn't even know that they were that vulnerable to attacks.
It's not necessarily vulnerable. It's just a poor design. I mean, PJL, the documentation that I'm working off of is from '97.
Oh,
geez. Some of the other stuff.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
it needs to be updated.
Older than dirt.
Yeah.
I've been told that it's going away, but when you figure that these people are spending,
it's not something that anybody thinks of to update. It's not
when
their
you
first
spend
thought.
$3,000 to $4,000 on a big network printer, you don't replace them until they break. I mean, I worked for an HMO, and we had stuff there that was probably 12 to 15 years old.
Oh yeah, we had some old stuff where I used to work too.
Yeah, it's a printer. So it's kind of neat when you can aggregate all the storage locally. What's really interesting is I was sharing some of the stuff I was working on with a couple other people. They came back to me and they're like, "So do you realize this works across the internet?"
Really?
Which means you can aggregate storage across multiple countries. Which starts getting really interesting.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right, tell me about that a bit.
That's really all there was to it. It was one of those things. It was like, oh, okay, thank you. We're not going to mess around with that anymore.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. I actually took a look at the IP chains and real quick testing somebody was doing for me, and they came back and they're like, gig of storage, 16 devices, 5 different countries. Like, that's kind of cool.
Wow. Yeah,
Didn't even know that was possible. So yeah, there is actually a lot of printers that are just open on the internet, port 9100, what's really cool is this is all unauthenticated stuff. So you've got printfs, you've got the PJL or PFS password. Sorry, I'm mixing all the tools up in my head. The PFS scanner, which is actually what goes out and determines whether or not a printer is supported, and it's really cool because it's kind of polymorphic. It's multi-threaded. Functions get called in random order just with random sleeps, and so the idea being that the network traffic, while similar, you can't compare one scan of one device to another and have them look the same. So it's just kind of a, hey, this was fun to write, and I'm going to laugh at the IDS guys a little bit.
So what kind of fun stuff can you do to other people's printers?
Some of the other things, the LCD rewrite has been done for years. I simply took it a step further.
Right, the LCD on the outside of the machines.
Yeah, I took it a step further and said, okay, fine, let's update it in mass. So social engineering hacks is kind of funny.
Awesome.
I had we did an animated rafflecopter dropping roller skaters and pushed it out to a whole bunch of devices.
Oh, that's great. That would confuse the masses.
Yeah, giant ASCII penis.
Oh God, what's going on with my printer?
It's kind of interesting from a social engineering standpoint. You know, I was picking on somebody and I said, hey, device broken, please call X number for support. Until he looks at it and realized that it was his number. So you could actually do some kind of funny, interesting things with it. You can actually break all the devices. You could either send them into a mass reboot loop. You can essentially connect to these devices and stay connecting. They can only accept one connection at a time, so nobody else can talk to them.
Yeah.
So you could essentially shut them down if you really wanted to. All sorts of really just kind of nifty, annoying stuff. The printer file system is what I really kind of enjoyed out of it. You know. Say, and somebody else mentioned it in one of their other talks of leveraging, hey, now we've got this free storage. I get into this network, why go use one of this tripwire server or a server with tripwire or something on to store my files when I can just store it on the printer so everyone ignores it. So it's just kind of this mystery covert storage that nobody ever really thinks about. It just kind of exists, and then when you're done, you've collected everything you want, you simply exfiltrate it out to the internet, and
That's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Now, is this open source? Like, are you still working on it?
It is open source. It's all written entirely in Python. It's all extremely documented. I've gotten kind of bored working with it, so I figured I'd release it and say, okay, here's how you work with everything.
Cool.
There's a backend PGL library. There's there's a PGL password that can be set on these devices to actually lock the disks so that I can't write to them.
Yeah.
The problem is it's 1 to 65,535, which means it's really, really easy to crack. So I've got a multi-threaded cracker for that.
Cool.
So I'll be releasing all of that stuff.
All sorts of fun tools.
Yeah. The support tool, like the user interface for it's a little broken right now. As soon as I get it fixed, I'll be releasing that code. I'm just horribly, horribly busy right now.
Oh, I understand. So am I.
It should be up in on the remote exploit website here within a week or so.
Oh, cool. Well, make sure you let our viewers know what the website is.
Remoteexploit.org. It's where they used to host Backtrack.
Sweet.
So I'm sure they all know where that's at.
Oh, yes. Yeah, probably every single one of them knows where that is. Ben, thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
Netflix delivers movies directly to your home, saving you time, money, and hassle. As a Netflix Unlimited member, you can instantly watch thousands of TV episodes and movies streaming directly to your PC or Mac, or right to your TV via Netflix-ready device, like the Xbox 360, PS3, or the Nintendo Wii console. Plus, get DVDs by mail in about 1 business day. Watch as many movies as you want, anytime you want. There are never any late fees or due dates. And as a new member and a Hak5 viewer, you get a free trial membership. Go to www.netflix.com/Hak5 and sign up now. Be sure to use this URL so they know we sent you. Well, that's it for Hak5 Season 8. Tune in next week for a very special Season 9 premiere. Until then, trust your Technolust.